All right, so today we're going to be diving into A/B testing in marketing. A lot of businesses out there, they're always looking for ways to optimize, all those marketing efforts and make sure that the work that they're putting in is actually yielding results. And one of the ways they can do that, of course, is through A/B testing. We've got some really cool stuff to cover today. We've got some excerpts from a marketing textbook and also a case study on a company called Lux Home Decor. But here's the thing. We're not just talking about the kind of standard traditional A/B testing. We're going to be going a little deeper and looking at the world of Bayesian A/B testing. Now, this method, it really helps us to get a deeper understanding of how customers behave. It can actually even help us to predict things like revenue a little bit more accurately.
It's a game changer for sure. So if we kind of want to start with the basics with A/B testing, it's basically like running an experiment where you're comparing, two or more versions of something to see which one performs better. Like, let's say you've got an email campaign. Well, you might want to test out a couple different subject lines to see which one actually gets people to open the email, right? It's about moving away from those gut feelings and towards decisions that are actually based on data.
Right. So instead of just, kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, you're taking a more, I guess you could say, scientific approach, right?
Totally, yeah.
But you mentioned that we're moving beyond that traditional A/B testing. So what's kind of the catch with the usual approach?
Well, the thing is, in the traditional method, statisticians call this the frequentist approach. Sometimes it can lead to some results that maybe aren't as clear as you'd want them to be, maybe even a little misleading. For example, you might find a difference between two variations that seems statistically significant. But then when you really look at it, the difference is actually so small that it really doesn't make a difference to your business. Like, imagine, you're changing your entire website layout based on just, like a tiny little increase in clicks. That's probably not the best use of your resources, right?
Yeah, it seems like there's a bit of a gap there between what the numbers are telling you and what actually makes sense from a business perspective. So is that where this Bayesian method comes in?
Absolutely, yeah. Bayesian A/B testing. It basically gives you a way to look at your data.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more insightful. And it doesn't just look at the data from your current experiment. It also takes into account anything you already know, or maybe even beliefs you have about how things might work. I always think of it like, when you're trying out a new recipe. The frequentist approach would be like following the recipe exactly and to the letter and just judging it based on how it turns out. But the Bayesian approach is more like, you're considering all your past experiences with similar recipes. Maybe you adjust the ingredients a little bit, or you change the cooking time based on, what you've learned before.
I like that. It makes it sound a lot more human and intuitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It really is. Now, a really great example of this in action is a company called Lux Home Decor. They're a mid-sized company. They specialize in those really eclectic, unique kind of home furnishings, And they were really trying to figure out how to boost their sales online. And one of the ways they thought they can do that was by giving their website a little bit of a facelift, revamping the user interface. So they decided to start with a traditional A/B test. And they were focusing on one of their popular products. They call it the Lux lamp.
Okay, yeah. So, did people just stop being interested in fancy lamps or something? What happened there?
Not quite. No. They basically divided up their website visitors into two groups. One group was shown the original website interface, and then the second group got to see the redesigned version. And then they tracked, how many people in each group ended up buying the Lux lamp.
Okay, yeah, that's your classic A/B test setup. So what happened? Did it not work?
Well, the results were a little bit murky, The group that saw the redesigned interface, they did have a slightly higher purchase rate for the lamp. But when they ran their, traditional statistical analysis, it seemed like that difference wasn't big enough to be sure. That the redesign was actually the reason people were buying more. They were kind of stuck. Yeah.
So they had this great idea for this revamp, but the numbers weren't quite adding up the way they had hoped.
Yeah, that's right.
So what did they do?
Well, instead of giving up, they decided to take that same Lux lamp data and run it through a Bayesian A/B test. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Because when they looked at the data through this new lens, the results were way more clear.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What did this Bayesian test show them?
It showed that the redesigned interface was very likely to lead to a significant boost in sales. They found that based on the data, the new design would increase sales about 76% of the time. That gave them a much higher level of confidence that the changes they were making were actually having a positive impact.
Okay, so the Bayesian approach basically gave them the clarity that they were looking for to actually move forward with this project.
Yeah, exactly.
But, clicks and purchases, sure, those are important.
Yeah.
But it's not the whole story, right? At the end of the day, businesses really care about, profit.
Right.
So how does that fit into all of this?
Well, Lux Home Decor realized that too. They realized that focusing on just clicks and purchases wasn't enough.
Yeah.
They had to look deeper. They had to look at what really matters, which is profit.
Okay, so they're going beyond just getting people to buy stuff. Now they're looking at the actual financial impact of those purchases.
Exactly, yeah. So they decided to take their Bayesian analysis one step further and actually incorporate the profitability of each purchase under both versions of the website. And this is where they had their real aha moment.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here. What happened?
So at first they thought the redesigned interface was the clear winner because it seemed to be leading to more purchases. But when they actually brought profitability into the equation, their decision completely flipped.
Oh, wow. So they were about to go all in with this redesign that could actually hurt their bottom line?
Yeah, it was a close call.
So what was going on there? What was the data telling them?
Well, it turns out that even though the original website interface might have seemed, a little outdated, it was actually subtly encouraging customers to buy products that were more profitable for the company. While the redesign, yeah, it was driving more sales overall, but those sales had slightly lower profit margins.
So it wasn't just about how many lamps they were selling, but it was about which lamps they were selling and at what price, right?
That's it, yeah.
That's fascinating.
It really shows how Bayesian A/B testing can help businesses to see the bigger picture. They're not just optimizing for one metric. They're making sure they're focusing on what truly matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Luxem Decor, they were so impressed with this approach that they decided to make it a regular part of their decision-making process.
So they didn't just stop at one test. They actually continued to run these tests, collect more data, and refine their Bayesian model over time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having this constantly evolving roadmap for their business. And it's all based on actual customer behavior, not just guesswork. They really understood that one of the best things about Bayesian methods is that you can constantly incorporate new information as you get it. And that helps you to make even more accurate predictions and better decisions.
I love that idea of a constantly evolving roadmap. Now, I'm sure that our listeners out there are already thinking about how this could apply to their own work. So what are some of the main advantages of Bayesian A/B testing that they should really be thinking about?
Well, one of the biggest advantages is how clear and easy to understand the results are. With traditional methods, you might end up with, a p-value or a confidence interval. And those don't really tell you much about what the results actually mean for your business. But with Bayesian A/B testing, you get these probabilities and intervals that are much more straightforward. You can say things like, there's a 95% probability that version A will do better than version B. That's so much more useful than just saying the results are statistically significant.
Yeah, it's like you're actually speaking the language of business, right? It's not just about the numbers. It's about what those numbers actually mean for decision making.
Exactly. Another huge advantage is that you can use what you already know. In traditional A/B testing, every experiment starts from zero. But with Bayesian methods, you can bring in data you already have, expert opinions, even your gut feeling. Let's say you have data that shows certain promotions usually work well with your target audience. You can actually build that information into your Bayesian model and get more accurate results faster.
So it's like you're not constantly reinventing the wheel with every experiment. You're building on what you've already learned, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And because of that, Bayesian A/B testing is great when you don't have tons of data. Like imagine you're a startup. You don't have millions of customers yet. Traditional A/B testing might take forever to give you results. But with Bayesian methods, you can get useful information much quicker because you're using what you already know about your customers in the market.
So it's like a secret weapon for smaller companies trying to make the most of the information they have.
It is. And this brings us to another advantage, less risk. Since you can make better decisions with less data using Bayesian A/B testing, you can test out different ideas on a smaller scale before you show them to everyone. That means you can catch problems early and make changes without risking a big failure.
So it's all about making smarter choices, avoiding those expensive mistakes, and finding those winning solutions faster, right?
Exactly. And all of these advantages ultimately lead to one major outcome, better conversion rates and better results for your business. By using Bayesian A/B testing, you can figure out what your target audience really responds to. You can optimize your marketing messages and your campaigns, and you can make decisions that are actually based on data every step of the way. It's like setting yourself up for success.
It sounds like it gives you a real edge in the world of marketing. But before we wrap up, are there any downsides our listeners should know about? Are there any times when Bayesian A/B testing might not be the best choice?
That's a really good question. Bayesian A/B testing is super powerful, but you got to use it the right way. Just like any other statistical method, it needs good quality data. If your data is methy or incomplete, your results won't be reliable. So you got to make sure you're collecting good data and you're thinking about any biases or inconsistencies.
So it's like that saying, garbage in, garbage out. Even the fanciest model can't make bad data good.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Bayesian A/B testing isn't a magic bullet for every problem. It works best when you have a clear idea of what you're testing. And when you're comparing things that are likely to have a real impact, you don't want to use it for every single decision. Use it strategically where it makes the most sense.
So it's a powerful tool, but you got to use it wisely.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to try things out and keep improving. What's great about Bayesian methods is that you can keep learning and tweaking your approach as you get more data. Your model can actually get better as you understand your customers more. And that helps you make even better predictions and decisions.
So it's like a never-ending journey of getting better and better, always looking for deeper insights and refining those strategies.
Exactly.
I love that.
Me too.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into Bayesian A/B testing, I want to leave our listeners with a question to think about. How could you use these ideas in your own work or even your personal life? Maybe you're trying to choose between two marketing campaigns, or maybe you're just figuring out the best way to organize your to-do list.
It's a chance to think outside the box about how you make decisions,
Yeah.
to look at the data you have, and to see how powerful it can be to use what you already know.
And who knows, you might just discover some amazing insights that lead to breakthroughs you never expected.
The possibilities are endless.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable knowledge and that you're excited to explore the world of Bayesian A/B testing.
Until next time, keep those minds curious.
And as always, thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
It's all about, finding new ways to learn and to improve. Always looking for those insights that can help you make those breakthroughs. And that's what's so cool about this whole Bayesian A/B testing thing. It's not just some, statistical technique. It's a whole new way of thinking about data. It's about using what you know to make smarter decisions, to get better at what you do.
Yeah, I love that. It's like it's taken the best of both worlds, right? It's combining that, rigorous data analysis with human intuition and experience.
Sure.
So thinking about our listeners out there, a lot of them are probably in the business world. What are some real world examples of companies using Bayesian A/B testing to really move the needle?
Oh, yeah. There are tons of companies embracing this approach. It's really catching on. But one example that always comes to mind is dashuju.com. They're a big e-commerce platform. And like a lot of businesses out there, they were dealing with sales that were kind of all over the place, up one month, down the next. It was a real roller coaster.
Yep.
And they were also struggling to keep their users engaged. People were coming to the site, but they weren't really sticking around.
Yeah, that's a common challenge, right? Finding that consistency, figuring out how to keep those sales numbers going up.
It's a constant battle, for sure. So dashuju.com decided they needed to get serious, and they turned to Google Analytics combined with Bayesian A/B testing to really understand their customer behavior on a deeper level.
Okay, Google Analytics, that's a familiar name. So how did they use that along with Bayesian A/B testing?
Well, they started by gathering as much data as they could. Everything from how people were interacting with the website to their purchase history, all that good stuff. Then they did something really smart. They divided their users into two groups, new visitors and returning visitors.
Ah, that makes sense. You wouldn't market to someone who's never been to your site the same way you'd market to a loyal customer, right?
Exactly. They knew they needed to treat each group differently. So they started by analyzing the behavior of those returning visitors. How often were they coming back? When was the last time they bought something? What kind of products were they looking at? All those little clues that could tell them how well their current strategies were working.
So it's like taking the temperature of your customer base, seeing who's happy, who's not.
Exactly.
And then I guess they use the Bayesian A/B testing to compare those two groups.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to see how each group responded to different marketing tactics. And the Bayesian approach helped them to take into account all those unique characteristics of each group.
So they weren't just comparing apples to oranges. They were really digging into the nuances of each fruit.
That's a great way to put it. And to get a better grasp on the financial side of things, They also looked at the purchasing patterns of each group. They built these models to predict how likely someone was to actually buy something, and if they did buy something, how much they were likely to spend. And these models weren't just based on, some kind of wishful thinking. They were based on real data, including the fact that a lot of people browse websites without ever buying anything. That gave them a much more realistic estimate of how much money each group could potentially bring in.
So they were taking a more holistic view, not just focusing on those who were making purchases.
Right. It was about understanding the whole customer journey.
Okay, so what did they discover? Were those returning visitors really that different from the new ones?
The results were pretty amazing. As you might expect, those returning visitors, they were way more engaged. They came back to the site more often, they were more likely to add things to their cart and actually complete a purchase. And when they did buy something, they tended to spend more than new visitors.
It's like they say, sometimes it's better to focus on keeping your existing customers happy.
Absolutely. For dashuju.com, having this data was like a light bulb moment. They finally had a clear picture of their customers, and that allowed them to come up with marketing strategies that were actually effective.
So how did they actually put these insights into action? What did they change?
Well, first they focused on those loyal customers, those returning visitors. They wanted to make them feel special, so they created these personalized email campaigns using the data they had gathered on what those customers had bought before and what they'd been browsing on the site. They could recommend products that those customers would actually be interested in. They also made the website experience better for those returning visitors, giving them exclusive perks, early access to sales, things like that.
It's all about building those relationships, right?
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't forget about those new visitors either. They knew that first impressions are everything. So they worked on making the onboarding process as smooth as possible. They wanted to guide those new visitors towards making that first purchase and to show them why dashuju.com was so special.
So it was a two-pronged approach. Keep the loyal customers happy and make those new visitors feel welcome.
That's it. And this whole case study just shows you how powerful Bayesian A/B testing can be. dashuju.com went from feeling lost in a sea of data to having a clear understanding of their customers and a plan for how to grow their business.
It's like they took all that data and turned it into actionable insights.
Exactly. It's not just about collecting data, it's about using it to make better decisions.
So what are some of the key takeaways that our listeners can use in their own work?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that Bayesian A/B testing can help you to optimize your marketing efforts in a way that's really tailored to your specific business. It's not just about following some generic best practices. It's about using data to figure out what actually works for you and your customers.
So it's about being data-driven, but also being smart and strategic about how you use that data.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the basics of A/B testing to the power of the Bayesian approach. And we've seen some really cool real-world examples of how companies are using these techniques to achieve amazing results. So as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try new things and to see what works best for you.
That's how you learn and grow.
And who knows, you might just stumble upon some groundbreaking insights that could transform your business.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Bayesian A/B testing.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed it and that you're feeling inspired to put these ideas into practice.
Keep those minds curious.
And as always, thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.